Welcome to Conversations. I'm Muqtadar Khan, your host, and today I'm going to talk to you about a speech that Prime Minister Modi made on August 15th, in which he essentially made two pronouncements, and those are both very worrying. And I will talk about them shortly, but let me explain to you that India's national security related issues are essentially tied to the two neighbors, China and Pakistan, both nuclear powers, and India has fought several wars with Pakistan, depends on how you count, at least five. And India has had several exchanges recently with China, even though there hasn't been a major war since 1962, but there have been border clashes in 2017, in 2020, and subsequently there have been incursions from the Chinese on the northeastern frontier of India near the state of Arunachal Pradesh. In fact, it is currently believed that right now the Chinese army is preventing Indian soldiers from patrolling within India's own demarcated territory in the state of Arunachal Pradesh. So right now, India is facing an insecurity, while local governments and others are highlighting this fact. The Indian government remains in a state of denial, because if they acknowledge that China has once again penetrated India's territory, then they have to respond to it. And they have hyped up so much hyper-nationalism in India that the Indian public will demand nothing less than another Operation Sindoor on China, where India would destroy Shanghai or capture Beijing or whatever, like they did in Operation Sindoor against Pakistan. They destroyed Karachi and annexed it and stuff like this. So there has to be a lot of hyper reactions to this in Indian media to satisfy the fever of nationalism that has gripped India's a large section of the Indian population. But the government cannot do that, obviously, so they are being very careful and simply denying that, because even if they have to make a mildly strong statement, then they would have to face the possibility that Xi Jinping may not come to India in the middle of September for the BRICS summit, and that would be the end of India's BRICS. So I think India faces those challenges, and it is in this environment where there are a lot of domestic protests going on. It's essentially incompetent governance by the Modi government and ruining the exams and careers of young people. Everybody is familiar now with the rise of the cockroaches and their protests at Jantar Mantar in New Delhi, which forced the government of India to back off from the positions that it had taken, to the extent acknowledge culpability and essentially force the Minister of Education to resign, which is something that the BJP has never done in the past. They take great pride in not having accountability, no matter what. None of the BJP ministers ever resign. For example, the security and intelligence failure with Pahalgam, subsequent terrorist attacks in India. There is a huge law and order problem for more than a couple of years in Manipur, but nobody ever took any responsibility. But the young people of India, students, graduate students, etc., forced the Modi government to essentially ask their home minister, their education minister, to resign. So it is in this environment that Prime Minister Modi gave a speech on August 15th from the Red Fort, in which he made the usual. The speech is like his usual speech, that when I grow up, I will be a pilot. When I grow up, I'll be a doctor. I'll write a novel, make a movie, win the Nobel Prize. That India will grow up and become. So he's been saying this for lots of time, that India will become a $5 trillion economy. It has not yet reached that. He was predicting 2021, 2025. Now it's 2029. Things like that. India will become a major exporter of weapons, even though India is a major importer of weapons. Those kind of talks which make you feel good, but are not really substantive. But there are two comments he made in that speech which are highly problematic. One, he's decided to create a civil defense force, essentially train young people, I guess, who are unemployed, to become a kind of a backup if Indian army is defeated by Pakistan or by China. it's amazing how there is no discussion in India as to the implications and ramifications of why India needs a civil defense force. Why do you need a large civil defense force? It will be used against whom? Already, India has a plethora of armies going on, civilian armies, vigilante groups going on, harassing minorities all over the country with and without the help of the police forces. Already, there are many civil terrorist groups, you could say domestic terrorist groups in India, which make the life of people who are underprivileged, like the Dalits and religious minorities, miserable on a daily basis. And now maybe these same groups will be legitimized under the rubric of a civil defense force. So that's another problematic point, and I think we will talk about it in later uh, editions of conversations. But the point that I wanted to make today was that he also came up with a new concept called Dimaghi Naxals. Naxals is a word that is used for Marxist extremists who wanted essentially systemic changes in land ownership, etc. And they basically decided to use arms struggle against various states. I come from the former state of Andhra Pradesh, and we used to hear about Naxalites operating and the government constantly fighting them. So it was like a low intensity Marxist insurgency in India. So now Modi goes ahead and says that we have suppressed this and we have ended the physical violent activities. But what remains is we have to go after Dimaghi nexus, intellectual nexus. So basically, what has happened is that the rise of the student protests at Jantar Mantar, and some of the biggest forces in that were leftist students who are left of center. So suddenly he's feeling the fear and pressure from the center left. Most of the academics are not with the Hindu nationalist movement in India. They do not support the Modi government. So they have clamped down hard on universities. They're cutting down freedom of speech and academic freedom and installing RSS members of the Rashtriya Swayamsevak, a Hindu nationalist militant group, with thousands of members dedicated to the idea of supporting and creating a Hindu nation in India. And they are opposed to the secularism and pluralism that is inherent in the current Indian constitution. So people like that are now taking over positions in universities. Professors are being arrested for asking questions about minority oppression. They are being charged with, or they are being suspended from their jobs. Professors who tweet anything critical of the Modi government keep getting arrested. Mahbubabad Khan, and another professor, just tweeted something critical last year, and he was arrested and held for 2 weeks before he was granted bail. So there's this constant attack on intellectuals. Even media is under pressure, and the Modi government tried to shut down BBC. Amnesty International was driven out of the country. So already there are very oppressive methods that Modi has taken. He has captured the Godi media. So you can see that the mainstream media does not even ask questions. There are no press conferences. So he's creating an authoritarian, totalitarian dictatorship through elections. And now that he's not winning elections because he did not win the 2024 elections, he rules through a coalition without getting absolute majority. They have come up with something called SIRs, which are basically writing off people who don't vote. Communities that don't vote for the BJP are being written off the electoral rolls. So there is a massive corruption in the election process, as evidence from what happened in Assam and West Bengal very recently. So systematically, the Modi government is destroying the pillars and bricks of Indian democracy, Indian secularism, Indian pluralism. And I'll show you some indications. So now this new term of declaring anybody who's critical and thinking, and so if you have a thoughtful commentary, you write a very critical op-ed, or if you give a speech, you immediately could be labeled a Dimaghi Naxal. And there already is a word which is much maligned called urban nexus in the Indian discourse. And then they will use this to simply target and attack anybody who says anything critical of Modi or Hindu nationalism or the existing policies of the government. And I think this is in preparation for what they think is going to be the next generation, which is going to rebel against the BJP government. They are seeing things happen like that in the US. You can see Donald Trump accusing Mamdani of being a communist and a jihadist. And the same with Abdul Al Sayed when he won the Michigan primary. So there is, and there's constant lambasting of Ilhan Omar as a communist and a jihadist. They can't make up their mind. And these guys do such a great job that their constituents keep electing them back. And that is the fear that Modi has, that no matter how much we suppress them, criticize them, they will get support from their people. So I think what they are going to do in the near future is shut them down. And that is the thing. Modi is not frightened of China or of Pakistan. He's afraid now of an Indian who's critical, who's thinking, and is asking the Modi government questions. Let me give you a few data. So, for example, look at this data. This shows that from 2014 onwards until now, the India's press freedom ranking has declined from in the 40s. It was among the top 40 countries when it comes to press freedom, and now it has declined to something around 157. India has dropped from 40s to 150s in ranking when it comes to press freedom. This has already happened because the media is afraid to ask critical questions. Let me show you a little bit more of data. This is the World Justice Project Rule of Law Index. So if you look at the purple line, you can see this is fundamental rights. So India was ranked pretty okay. It was around the 50s when Modi became prime minister in 2014, and now it is around 105. So India has dropped 50 points when it comes to protection of fundamental rights, and not just minorities, of the entire country. Overall rank of India when it comes to rule of law has also declined from 40s to 80s. On every indicator of democracy, of human rights, of freedom of conscience, of freedom of religion, freedom of speech, India has been steadily declining under Modi's rule. This is Freedom House rankings, and they are looking at judiciary and minority rights. You can see the declines. And Freedom House ranking, even in 2021, said India went from being a free country to a less than free country. So change the status from partly free. So India is not considered as a free country according to the Freedom House ranking. So you can see that already under Modi, the India's quality of India's democracy has been steadily declining, and it is becoming an authoritarian state. And I think the current speech and the panic in Modi's posture at the rise of the next, it's very clear that he's losing the next generation. It's not only that they disagree, but they are mocking him. And the mockery has become so blatant that the government is trying to now charge 15-year-old for criticizing the prime minister. Can you imagine that you're getting a police or being arrested because you said something critical? If that was the case, half of Americans would be in jail today at how critical we are of Donald Trump. So Modi will not allow a 15-year-old child to say something critical of him. There are cases being filed against this, and they will hunt down. This is a very mean regime. It will hunt down people, target them, and ruin their lives. And in the process, but the problem for them is that, okay, if there are a few thousand, they don't mind ruining. But what if there are a few million people? Will you ruin your own future? That is something that Modi needs to think. In order to remain in power, will he destroy the freedom of thought of the Indian people going forward? And if that is destroyed, then whatever promise of India becoming a major power will end. It'll become like North Korea. Already Modi has said that he is non-biological. He feels he is God. And so India, if it continues in this trend, then it will become like North Korea, I'm sorry to say. I hope I'm completely wrong, and I hope that there will be a course correction. And for that, India's upper middle class and educated class has to rebel against the current regime and demand more freedoms at the university levels, more freedoms in the media, and of course, more freedom in the judiciary. If that does not happen, then India will cease to be a democracy. And if the universities are destroyed because they are Dimaghi nexils, then where will you educate your next generation? Thank you for watching Conversations. Please subscribe to the channel, like this video, press the bell icon, and don't forget to share this video with your socio-political network. Until next time, I'm your host, Muqtada Khan. Take care.